Hello friends, it's late October, and though so many apples have already been harvested, like this luscious Cordera, it's actually a fabulous time to start thinking about when isn't it a great time to start thinking about planning and planting an orchard in your life. Whether it's 2 or 200 trees, so much joy, and let's go for it together. We are learning always, and so delighted to share everything that we're learning with you always. And so here, let's dig in. These are 5 keys to establishing our organic apple orchard, as well as 5 common mistakes to avoid. And here I also want to say that we at Fruition are totally students of this, of everything, of life, always. Our dear friends Lauren and Heron are profoundly helping us. They bring decades and decades and decades of orcharding expertise and curiosity and joy to our ability to do anything. So I just want to say, if I can do it, if I can learn these things, you can too. I am right there at the bottom of my learning curve. So here are some keys that we are learning that I'm so excited to share with you as well. So first and foremost, here are the 5 keys that yes, set you up for success as you embark on this journey. Number 1 is just planning, and planning for accessibility. So the design is everything. Thinking about, yes, the varieties and the rootstocks, the size, the vigor, so you can be planning out that spacing, that pruning, and thinking how you'll be mowing, for example. Will you be mowing with a tractor, with a scythe? How are you going to deliver compost or mulch? All of these questions make such a big difference, and there's as many ways to plant an orchard as there are ways to garden, as there are ways to be human. So there is no one way, and stay tuned for our key questions to help you really dial in this whole thing about orchard planning, because it makes all the difference how to plant it so that you can set yourself up for the most easy, accessible maintenance. Where do you get water from? And just keep in mind, keep your orchard near. It's near and dear to our hearts, and near and dear in proximity to us, our eyes, and our ability to care and maintain this beautiful space in our lives. So yes, number 2, start small. It's hard for me. I always want to do things and do things. And it's so important to start small. It's a lot of work to establish fruit trees, especially early on. After a certain point, there's a lot more just ease of maintenance, but until then, there's a lot of work just protecting them from mice and voles and porcupines in the first few years. So really establishing them well, protecting them from borers. You want to make less is more, so that more of your attention can absolutely be surrounding your plants with that much more attention and that much more success. So to whatever degree, keep it small, keep it simple, so that it'll be that much more fun. Number 3, soil testing. I'm a little obsessed with soil testing, honestly, and not just in this empirical, let's find out the pH and NPK kind of sense, but let's just really get a baseline of what's happening biologically as well. Let's talk biology, let's talk mycology, but getting a soil test, and check out our soil testing blog and our specific soil testing blog about trees as well. There's so much to say, and beyond just a regular vegetable garden, you want to be sure there's certain levels of calcium and magnesium and sulfur present so that your fruit can be that much more fruitful. So yes, and the ideal pH between 6 and 7. But yes, stay tuned for a whole lot more about all of this, and certainly soil testing is no exception. Number 4, oh my goodness, is number 1. I mean, these are not in any particular order, as in number 1 is not more important than number 5, and number 4 certainly is so important. The right variety makes all the difference. There are thousands of varieties of apples, from heirlooms to brand new varieties that are just being released now, to ones that haven't existed yet but will in our lifetimes. this is the just history of life becoming and our co-adaptation with this brilliant apple species. So yes, there are so many different flavors, so many different textures, so many different purposes. So there's as many ways to garden and orchard as there are ways to be human, and ways to have beauty. Deliciousness is in the eye of the beholder. So yes, definitely try, sample as many apples as you possibly can. It's such a joy. But keep in mind, no one has better taste for what you want than you. There's no one right way. And keep in mind too, apples that thrive in warmer seasons down south here in Turtle Island and continental US tend to not do as well up north, and vice versa. So definitely pay attention to zones and growing regions recommended. And certainly here at Fruition, all the trees that we offer are really well adapted for our short seasons here in the Northeast, which is exactly why we do what we do, and so we can share it with you. And so all of our varieties are of course delicious, otherwise it's not worth growing anything, but also disease resistant, because it doesn't matter how delicious it is. If it's not disease resistant, especially apples, it's so crucial that they have things, especially here in the Northeast, like fire blight resistant and scab. So important. So all of the varieties that we offer, we specifically choose because they have that disease resistance paired with the deliciousness, and we have lots of friends helping us in this way. And if you would like to be one of them, oh my goodness, let us know, because those combinations of rootstock, scion, fruiting wood, we'll be spending the rest of our lives, and hopefully generations to come, exploring the endless possibilities of fruit combinations to surround us all with abundance. And now, number 5, biodiversity. Perhaps my favorite. As above, so below. And if you want delicious, sweet, such resilient fruit above, oh my goodness, it's just a reflection of what it's growing in. So there's so much more to talk about this. And the soil test, did I mention? But having not just bare soil around your tree, although having a lot of mulch in that first year is really important, so that they are, don't have all of this competition as their roots are really establishing. But that being said, companion planting in orchards is absolutely crucial for 1,000 reasons, whether it's bringing up nutrients from the subsoil, or whether it's providing nectar, food, and habitat for beneficial insects. There are so many reasons and so many permutations, possibilities, and I can't wait to dive in more with you, friends. So now let's dig into the 5 common mistakes that people make and how hopefully you can avoid them as well. Number 1, trees are near and dear. It's a labor of love, and keep them away from your dear fences. Make good neighbors. I don't know, Robert Frost, but certainly in some cases I could concede. And in orcharding, it's certainly one of them. You want to be sure that between the porcupines and the deer, they will probably take down your trees in no time. And so it's very important to actually put up your fence prior to planting, when at all possible. In lieu of that, cage them first and then put up your fence, but it's always best to have that fence first. And your fence can be really tall and really expensive, or it can be really simple. Honestly, here I am in our dear friend Daryl and Jan's beautiful garden with a few semi-dwarf and dwarf trees behind me, and there's raspberries, all kinds of veggies, and around us is a really simple fence, just 5-foot T-posts with 4-foot chicken wire, and I am blown away how beautiful everything is. And I mean, we live in the country, there are so many deer, and deer are different everywhere, there's no question about it. But yes, this is fences make good neighbors in the orcharding department. So don't skimp, especially if you want it to be around for years, if not generations. Oh, it's so true. Number 2, let's talk about cold spots. Cold air drains, falls down to the lower elevations where hot air rises. And because apples, they are going to be blossoming in the spring, and if the frost hits those blossoms, you won't have fruit. So avoid those cold spots. You can also look at it this way. You can look at the visuals, certainly. Hillsides are always a good choice. But you can also look at where kind of the fog tends to settle in the spring, in the fall. Those are the cold spots. So there's lots of clues to help you decide exactly where to plant trees. Oh my goodness, plant trees where they want to be planted. Not necessarily where you want them, but where they want to grow. And now number 3, avoid eastern red cedar. And not white cedar. White cedar is fine. Trees in the thuja, the true cedar genus, are not an alternate host for apple cedar rust. Thank goodness. But eastern red cedar, by contrast, wait for it, Juniperus virginiana. That is the species of tree that you want to be sure is nowhere close, ideally beyond 100-foot radius or more, ideally more. And that way you can be confident that that very disappointing disease will not be a part of your life nearly to the extent, if at all to the extent. So number 4, let's talk light, because let there be light. It's a common mistake people make, especially in more urban environments, to put trees, again, where you want the tree, but not necessarily where the tree wants to be. So as much of a full day, the more sun your tree gets, the more it will be able to photosynthesize and creating lots more fruit, as well as just be better air drainage, more warmth. It'll just be a healthier, happier tree the more light that it gets. And that health and happiness will translate directly to the abundance that you will crunch. And number 5, soggy areas, just in gardens in general, are just bad news, unless you're intentionally wanting to plant boneset and blue vervain, which I highly recommend. But apple trees absolutely want well-drained soil. And so think of drainage not only above the ground in terms of air, but below the ground in terms of soil draining. And you will set yourself up for so much more abundance, friends. So yes, there's so much more to share, and I can't wait to dive in. I'm so grateful for our friends that are helping us learn all the time about orcharding. We are just getting into this, where I've grown vegetables since before I knew how to talk about them, since before I could speak the word vegetable. I've always loved trees, but I have never grown them until now. So we are just learning, and as we learn, we get to share with you, and so have no doubt we are right there accompanying you on the journey. And we're so grateful that you're here with us and that we get to grow together. And here's to all the ways that we will learn, that we will laugh, that we will learn the hard way, and that we will be surrounding each other and future generations with all the abundance that we can dream of.